Hey, so if you saw my previous video, you guys would know that that was a pretty heavily script-based video, and I was just reading off the script. It was very formulaic. This video, not going to be like that. It's very much going to be more of a, I'm just kind of going through the matchups, seeing if I think they're a good fit, kind of giving my vague thoughts on them, just keeping it real short and simple, and then just kind of informing on what the matchups are and who chose who. So if you guys don't know, the Blast Bounty system, the way it works is the top 16 teams are going to get picked from the bottom 17 to 32 teams. It's kind of convoluted, but the way it works is the top 16 teams all have varying bounties depending on their ranking. So the teams below, they want to steal that bounty and then proceed through the tournament like that. And so I wanted to get this video out because recently, as of yesterday, I believe, the Blast Bounty had just announced the matchups and what everyone picked, so I wanted to go through those real quick. The first pick we have is Big picking into Saw, which I thought was kind of interesting because Big are coming in with a brand new roster with Hyped and QB on the team, kicking out Rigon and Searson, which I personally think is a very interesting move, but we'll have to see how that works out for them. Saw retaining the same roster they had at the end of December of last year, so nothing new there. But then again, the team is pretty new. This team had not played too much together, so it's still pretty new units going against each other, but Saw having a little bit more chemistry most likely. According to Big's coach, Kakafu, I believe that's how it's pronounced. If it's pronounced some other like weird way, I apologize in advance, but I'm not sure. He said it was either between them or Complexity that they wanted to pick, and they didn't want to pick a top 5 team for their first round, which I think this makes complete sense. If you're Big going into this, you have Hyped and QB coming in as new players. I think it's really stupid if you go and immediately risk it on like picking like a Spirit or a Navi or something like that. Like obviously a team that's going to have a lot more cohesion. So I think it's a smart choice to pick one of these teams that are struggling a little bit or you think are going to struggle a little bit. And I don't hate the pick, but I think it's going to be one of the games I'll probably end up skipping. Speaking of Complexity, the second pick is VP picking into Complexity. Now, this is no surprise. VP had just picked up Flamus to round out their core of strong riflers, as well as Icy to get a good opper in there, a nice young opper. And then Complexity obviously coming in with CXCI and Nyx, since losing Floppy and Elige. So definitely a lot weaker than the previous roster. 2 of these players have never played a Tier 1 tournament before. So, I mean, it's hard to blame them when there's just free points right in front of you. Presumably free points right in front of you, right? No surprise there. For the third pick, Heroic picking 3D Max. I think this is one of the better matchups to watch. I think it's super interesting. Going into this tournament, Heroic are rocking with the roster of the Sangao core, plus Impious, plus TN1R. It's also worth noting that I believe they said they had Nilo and Modin on the bench. I'm not sure if that's just for this tournament or if it's just Heroic have them listed as substitutes. In general, I haven't actually looked too much into that, but I had heard that that's the case, so that's another interesting thing to go into. Maybe this isn't even a tournament with their primary roster. They're just trying to get things established or even see if things are worth going with this roster. So that's interesting. Saul had given a little snippet to the Blast Twitter to let everyone know his thought process going into this, and he said that it was a good matchup player to player and map pool wise, which I thought was very interesting since presumably this team won't have a deep map pool since it's just a core coming in with 2 new players. So I thought that was pretty interesting. The X-Sangal core is 1-0 against the 3D Max team, so presumably it still could be a good match if they still pair up nicely like that. The Sangal core did have their best win rate on Vertigo though, and 3D Max banned Mirage, so there is a possibility in this matchup for Train to be played, but I'm not quite sure. And you'll notice that is like a thing that happens through a lot of these matchups is I will mention that Train is a possibility for these matchups, but for a lot of them it's kind of hard to tell if they'll lean towards Train because it seems a lot of pro teams are kind of leaning in the favor of this map is shit at the current moment. But some of them might use it for their advantage, so we'll see. For the fourth pick, Gamer Legion picked Pain, and I think this is another interesting one to watch because I think Pain are a really good team, especially. They just brought in a new player in, I believe, place of Lux. They brought in Davideus, who I think is a pretty strong player, and I think will be able to maybe elevate them a little higher than their heights they saw last season, which still were pretty impressive. And then Gamer Legion, who have just rebuilt their roster with PR and Rez since losing Volt and Flamus to VP. And I think this is super strong. Obviously, this is a core of pretty strong riflers, pretty young squad, and then Rez bringing in a ton of experience will just help them in the long run. And I think this is just overall probably going to be a good thing for them. But both of these teams have played all 7 maps in the past 6 months. Pain have barely played Ancient, and Gamer Legion have barely played Dust 2. So presumably these will be the bans that these teams were going for. But both teams did play Vertigo, so we can see either of these teams either playing into their weaker maps that they didn't pick last season, such as Gamer Legion playing Dust 2 or Pain playing Ancient, or we could see them both lean into something like a Train. Now, the coach of Gamer Legion is going to have you believe that they don't think Train's in a good spot right now, and they don't seem to play it from some of the interviews he's given, but that could also just be a tactical thing, try and make people think you won't play the map and then play it, but we'll just have to wait and see for that. Number 6 is Namiga picking into Furia. Now, I don't have many notes on this one because I just basically wrote their bans because I kind of feel like I know how this thing is going to go. Namiga ban Nuke usually, Furia ban Ancient, Train is a possibility, but at the end of the day, I think no matter what maps this goes to, this is one of those ones where you can just... I think this is just one of the ones where you can just chalk it down to firepower and experience and just kind of write Namiga out of this, but I'd be interested to see if they can surprise me there. For the 7th pick, we have Wildcard picking into Astralis. Now, at the current moment, Wildcard and 9 Pandas are actually playing right now in the Frost and Fire Europe Season 1 League. At the current moment of recording this, they're on map 3, so I have no idea who the winner is, but I put that in because I thought it was worth noting that Wildcard are going to be coming into this much more warmed up than Astralis, obviously having played officials. I think it's 3 throughout this tournament they are playing right now. Astralis, no officials under their belt. I don't even know if they played an official in a month maybe. It's been a while since the Shanghai Major, which they didn't even play with Device, so going to be super interesting. Wildcard also playing really good at the Major, so if they can keep that form up going into this event, that would be super interesting for them. Could definitely make this a very interesting tournament for them. Historically, Wildcard has been banning Mirage over the past 6 months, but they have played it before in NA, and they're banning Vertigo in the Frost and Fire tournament, so definitely interesting to see, since Vertigo is now out of the map pool, if they will be leaning into something like a Train. Astralis historically ban Anubis, so we could see a Train on this one, but I don't want to speculate into if any of these teams are actually going to be picking Train or not. For number 8, we have Bait picking into G2. NPL on this said that they are a comfortable team for us, which I thought was very interesting because I do not think that is the case. And historically, Bait have actually had a pretty bad record against top 20 teams and 0 matches against top 10 and above teams in the past 6 months, so it is really not looking good for them. Additionally, G2 just replaced Nico with Heavy God. Obviously, Heavy God is not taking Nico's spots. He can't do what Nico does, but the Guatemalan superstar Malb seems to be taking over his spots, and I have a lot of faith as a North American that he can make a lot of impact in this position and he can make a big splash. So very, very high on G2 right now. I think this is another one where you can just chalk to they outskill Bait. For number 9, we have Ents picking into Falcons, and after their pick rather, Ents' coach NKJ said that they picked them since they're a new team. They have a lot of bounty on their head. He believes it is a good matchup, which I found interesting, and he said that he doesn't believe that they will have a deep map pool, which is likely the case because according to reports, I think this team has been in a boot camp for only a week, so having about a little over a week of practice maybe doesn't look good for them to have anything more than a foundation set on each map. It is unlikely that they will have a super deep map pool, so kind of a lot going against them when you look at them like that. But of course, the Falcons is coming in with the heroic core, extremely strong players, Magisk, one of the best anchors in the game, and then obviously Nico, the number 4 player of the year, so it's pretty hard to argue with the firepower front against them, and has nowhere near that amount of firepower on their team. Additionally, the Falcons core has previously, over the past 6 months, banned Inferno, but Magisk has played Inferno on Falcons, and Nico played Inferno on G2, so it's uncertain if they will actually still keep banning Inferno, but I don't want to speculate in their map pool. I have no idea if they'll lean into it, or maybe they'll keep the ban, so for now, I'll just leave that as a note. For number 10, we have Imperial FE picking into Na'Vi. Now, their coach, Bubble, had said that they either wanted to pick into FaZe or Na'Vi if they couldn't get Saw. For this, they obviously picked into Na'Vi, and if you want a deep breakdown on their chances, their players, all that kind of stuff, you can click the video on screen now, but to summarize it, Na'Vi banned Vertigo. Imperial FE have not played Vert in the past 6 months, but historically they have, so there is a possibility of Train on this, but just firepower-wise and the form Na'Vi bring, it's going to be pretty hard to see Imperial FE take a map off of this. This is another one that we can likely just break down to the firepower difference. At number 11, we have Art's new team Fluxo picking into Eternal Fire. Fluxo recently picked up History and a name I'm not even going to try to pronounce, and Eternal Fire recently picking up Jota for the new season. Fluxo banning Anubis usually, EF banning Ancient, so Train is possible on this one since both of them play Vertigo, but again, uncertain. For the 12th pick, we have 9 Pandas picking into Liquid. 9 Pandas recently picking up Krad and Alv. As of this recording, they are currently playing in the Frost and Fire Europe season against Wildcard in the final. They've looked semi-decent, but I don't think it's anything that can really show up against a now bolstered Liquid, so this is going to be a very hard match for them. Another one you could probably just say is a shoo-in, just purely off the firepower that Liquid are going to be able to bring. Worth noting, both of them ban Vertigo, so in this veto, one of them can force it on the other person to make them ban it in order to get a leg in over them on the veto, but I'm unsure if either team will do that. For the 13th pick, we have M80 picking FaZe, and this one I think is very interesting. FaZe are going to be doing this with their first showing as a Liege, as their new 5th. Obviously, if you guys have been keeping track, FaZe have a lot of role clash with the Liege coming in. He overlaps with Rain, he overlaps with Frozen, so it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of work out all the positioning. Unfortunately, M80 are also coming in this with a sub since Rek has broke his leg, so they're going to be playing with Keto. It is worth noting, Sin mentioned his reasoning for picking them is because he thinks they are weak in low-pressure situations, which historically has been true. FaZe have notoriously done horrible in things such as group stages and whatnot, and then amped up as they got into playoffs, so it is possible that they won't take these online matches as seriously, or they won't have the full focus they tend to have, but I think it's going to be pretty difficult if you're M80 to come in with a sub and play the team that got second place at the most recent major. It's going to be a hard one. For the 14th pick, we have BetBoom picking into Mouse. Now, this is interesting because Mouse reportedly was going to get poached basically the whole offseason and is now coming into the new season. One of the few top 5 teams, top 10 teams, whatever, that didn't get poached, didn't get broken apart, whatever. So it's very interesting. Unfortunately, BetBoom has just recently picked up Boomage and Exile, which I think are great additions to their team, but they likely have very limited time playing with each other, so I doubt they will have super strong map pool or a deep playbook. So this is another one where it's kind of just leaning heavily towards the experience and the firepower of Maus, but it is worth noting the BetBoom core previously banned Inferno and Maus banned Anubis, so Train is possible in this matchup. For second to last one, we have Fnatic picking into Spirit. Fnatic have recently brought in Fear and Burmilov. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'm not quite sure, but Spirit, #1 ranked team on HLTV. Fnatic have played all 7 maps, but didn't pick Nuke too often. Spirit banned Inferno, so Train is technically possible, but I would be super surprised if Fnatic come in with anything too strategically deep or a wide playbook or even a wide map pool, because they've been together for such a short amount of time and Spirit is such a strong team. It's going to be difficult no matter how you turn it. And for the last pick, we have Metasport picking into Vitality. Not really many options when there's only one team left, but Metasport notably getting Hampus and Isaac recently, so Metasport getting a much needed firepower boost, but unfortunately Vitality had just recently got Rops and is still just fundamentally a great team with the #3 player of the year, so another one where you can probably break it down to just being skill diffed, but Vitality ban Ancient, Metasport ban Dust 2, so this is another one where Train is technically possible, but we'll have to wait and see. Thank you guys for watching. I know my videos, especially the last one and this one, seem to be very fast-paced, but I haven't had too much time to really get into the script of these things because of work and school, so just wanted to try and get something out before the Blast Bounty. So I appreciate you guys' comments, likes, everything like that. The last video was doing super well, so I really appreciate that. And if you guys have anything you want me to talk about, just leave it in the comments and I'll get to it if I have time. So anyways, thank you, and I hope you have a good one.